According to a new national survey from Discover Personal Loans, 80% of American consumers are anxious about their financial situation. Compounding the issue, many don't feel financially equipped to handle life events from job loss to unexpected emergencies or an economic downturn. And joining us today is Nickole. He is the Vice President of Discover Personal Loans. And he's here to discuss the survey results and also share some tips that may help alleviate financial anxieties and also to help people feel prepared for the unexpected. All right, Dan, thanks so much for joining us. And let's jump right in here. Which survey results did you find the most interesting or surprising?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mikhayla. The thing I found the most surprising was just how consistent the results have been. You mentioned 80% of Americans are feeling some level of financial anxiety. That's nearly the exact same result that we've seen for 3 years running. At the top of the list of factors contributing to that stress are high everyday expenses and high inflation, two things that are very clearly and closely related.
Now, Dan, what are the top misconceptions that people have around managing debt?
I think the top misconception is that there's nothing they can do about it and that they won't be able to get out of debt. We've heard from our survey that 1/3 of individuals don't believe they can get out of debt, and I think there's more reason to be optimistic. So there's actually things that they can do to potentially reduce the cost of their debt by lowering the interest rate that they might be paying.
And what are your tips for people who are feeling financial stress or anxiety or even avoiding looking at their bank accounts?
Yeah, and avoiding looking at your bank account isn't going to get it done. So you have to take a deep breath and believe that you can do it and start with a budget. So with a budget, you'll have a better sense for where your money is going and potentially find ways that if you don't have debt, you can save up an emergency fund. And if you do have debt, find ways to allocate more of your incoming cash towards that debt to get out of that situation.
Now, what type of loans usually work best for big expenses, whether they're planned or unplanned?
So ideally, you'd be able to save up an emergency fund and avoid using a loan to pay for a large expense. But those expenses come up when we don't want them to, right? Your water heater doesn't ask your permission to fail on you. And so sometimes a loan is a necessary thing to look for in a way to solve for a large one-time expense. A personal loan can be a solution. A personal loan is money borrowed in a lump sum and paid back in equal monthly installments with a fixed interest rate.
And Dan, what are the top factors to consider when choosing a personal loan provider?
The top factors are, of course, a competitive interest rate. But in addition to that, you want to make sure that you can avoid origination fees. So an origination fee would actually reduce the amount of the loan that you would receive in your pocket. For example, if you took out a personal loan for $20,000 and had an origination fee on top of that, you might only receive $18,000, but you'd be responsible for paying back the full $20,000 with interest. And so with a Discover personal loan, for example, you're never responsible for, never charged an origination fee.
Dan, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.